Well, thank you, Tim. Good morning. I would like first to thank the organizers for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to share with you some thoughts about an ancient practice that is still alive in Spain and its implications for the provision of ecosystem services and for landscape planning. So, in a quick overview of my presentation, the main objective will be to show you a methodological framework that we have built to evaluate ecosystem services in the landscapes related with transhumance practices, and how we have applied this to a particular case study. So the 12-minute presentation, I hope, will be divided in 4 major parts. In the first instance, I will introduce you to this practice, the transhumance, and as an adaptive practice in Mediterranean ecosystems. Then I will show you this general framework that we have developed for ecosystem services evaluation. Then I will show you how we have applied this framework to the study case. And then I will share with you some insights about the implications of evaluating ecosystem services for decision making and for landscape planning in times of global change. So I will first like to introduce the Mediterranean, especially for those of you who are from abroad, so that many authors have proposed that there are no more natural landscapes in the Mediterranean, but cultural landscapes. And the Mediterranean is also characterized by a highly unpredictable and changing environment with recurrent disturbances like floods, droughts, fires, etc. And so the societies living in the Mediterranean had to develop creative and innovative solutions to cope with this highly changing environment. Well, transhumance is one of these adaptive solutions developed by Mediterranean societies. And so transhumance is a traditional practice consisting in a seasonal movement of livestock and shepherds from northern latitudes to southern latitudes, or from higher mountains to the valleys, in order to take advantage of the peaks of pasture productivity in these both different areas. So transhumance has been really relevant in Spain, particularly in the Middle Ages, but it's still a practice which is alive today. So we have a legally protected network of drove roads crossing the country from north to south, and they comprise about 0.8% of the territory, which is a lot. So just to show you how the ecological logic behind transhumance, just to show you in our study case, you can see how different vegetation productivity indexes are adjusted to the movement of livestock and cattle. So when the cattle is in the south, as you can see here, you can see the peaks of productivity of pasture lands in that area, while when the cattle is in the north, in the mountains in the north, there are also peaks of pasture productivity in those areas. Well, despite the adaptiveness of this practice, it has experienced a sharp decrease, particularly in the last 20 years. So in our study case, we have recorded a reduction in 60% in the number of shepherds and 55% in the number of livestock heads during these transhumance practices. And currently just 15% of them go on foot, and the rest of the shepherds prefer to move their livestock in trucks. There are many social and economic factors behind this abandonment, but we believe that one of the major reasons is the failure to acknowledge the wide range of ecosystem services that are associated with this practice. So 2 years ago, we began a project trying to make this whole range of ecosystem services visible to society and trying to value them in biophysical, cultural, and economic terms. In order to do this, we first developed a methodological framework for ecosystem services valuation based on the concept of conceptualizing the landscape of transhumance as a social ecological network, a network of biophysical and social flows which are maintained and generated by the movement of shepherds and livestock. And after that, we developed this methodological framework. I will not explain it in detail, but there is a poster outside that you can read later that explains in more detail one of the steps of this, this framework. It begins with the characterization in social, economic, and biophysical terms of the network, then a preliminary identification of ecosystem services, the evaluation of these services in biophysical, socio-cultural, and economic terms, and then the use of these valuations in participatory workshops to analyze possible futures and to define policy and management measures to, for the maintenance of this activity and ecosystem services it provides. Of course, interdisciplinarity and participatory research are cross-cutting issues in this whole process. Okay, so I will introduce now our study case, which is one of the major livestock droves still in use in Spain, which spans over 400 kilometers, is 75 meters wide, and so it connects a submarine area, which is mostly formed by coniferous forests and pasture lands, which is in the higher mountains. It crosses 3 autonomous communities in Spain, then a big drove road, which is, as I told you, more than 400 kilometers long, that crosses mostly agroecosystems in the La Mancha region, and then a wintering area which is mostly formed by oak forests and dehesa landscapes in the south. Okay, so we have identified a total of 34 ecosystem services which are directly or indirectly related to the transhumance practices. 10 of them were provisioning services like meat, wool, or manure, etc. There are 13 cultural services related to recreational activities, sense of place, scientific value, etc. And 11 regulating services, mostly fire prevention, tree regeneration, habitat for important species, etc. I will show you just briefly how we have evaluated some of these services, just for so that society and decision makers notice their importance. For example, we have evaluated the connectivity service using ArcGIS tools, how the presence of the drove increase the connection between forest patches and reduces the effort for wildlife to move from one patch to another. So as a result, we have demonstrated that it increases connectivity between forest patches from 9,000 hectares to 77,000 hectares, and it also reduces resistance to wildlife movements in up to 65% in some of the agricultural areas. We also have demonstrated the fire prevention services using archive data. So we have compared the number of fires in the last 10 years and the number of hectares that burned, comparing municipalities with livestock and municipalities that have lost the livestock. So we found a significant relation between the number of livestock per 1,000 hectares of forest and the number of hectares burned in the last 10 years. We also have evaluated the nursery service for hunting species of the drove road, comparing the abundance and distribution of several species at different distances from the drove road. And so we found that in some of the areas there was an increase in the abundance of species like rabbits or partridges. And we also have modeled generalized additive models to demonstrate that the probability of presence is higher close to the drove road. We also have made some economic valuation of some services like soil fertilization, for example, based on the amount of feces produced by livestock daily and the number of days they spent in stubble fields. So we have estimated the total, using market price of this manure, we estimated the total monetary value of the service of soil fertilization, which is about 2.3 euros per hectare in the submarine area where they stay. We also made some sociocultural evaluations. Okay, so For example, scenic beauty was based on a questionnaire comparing pairs of photographs, you can see here, with and without drove road and with and without livestock. And we found that, well, contrarily to what we expected, the presence of the drove road doesn't make a significant difference except for herders and shepherds. But the presence of livestock, the landscape with the presence of livestock were preferred by the whole range of stakeholders. And finally, how do we use this for landscape planning and decision making? Well, we use all of this information of ecosystem services evaluation just to, in participatory workshops, define what are the main drivers behind the abandonment of this practice, comparing what happened yesterday, what happened now, what are the main drivers that are affecting today to this practice, and what are the possible futures that we can imagine for transhumance and the ecosystem services related with it. So in these participatory workshops, we define future scenarios based on the trends of these ecosystem services that we have valued previously. And then decision making is made based on the analysis of trade-offs between the ecosystem services we lost and the ecosystem services we improve in each of these scenarios. So I'm out of time, I think. So just to give you a quick impression of the kind of measures that we propose, we identify the major drivers behind losing ecosystem services, and then we proposed policy measures, mostly grouped in 4 major issues. One of them is promoting or increasing economic viability with payment for ecosystem services, quality labeling, direct marketing. Another important thing is improving the social recognition of this practice, which is almost forgotten by the Spanish society. Reinforcing social capital, networks of shepherds, which are essential for the maintenance of the movement of cattle. And finally, maintaining drove roads in a good condition, which are also essential for permitting the movement of cattle. I finished, thank you, and this is our website, in case you want to know more things about how we apply this framework to other study cases in Spain and also in Latin America. Thank you very much.